I'm back today, and before this video starts, bunch of goods on part 2. My first one's pretty good. Okay, enjoy the video. I'll see you at the end. Bye bye.
One night, train set off late. It was going fast to make up lost time, but we lay on the viaduct and crashed into the fields below. It was found that some railway spikes had been stolen, so the rails were loose. But on the night of the crash every year, people say they see or hear the train on its final trip.
It was loose. It was taken by the number 3 engine. He was very sad. This was the end of his railway. After this run, he would be cut out. He approached a hill and began the climb. But as he was just about to reach the top, a cold, emotionless look crossed his face. And, in an instant, the engine shut off all steam. He rolled back down the hill faster and faster. His crew screamed as the train rocketed downhill. It was no good. They kept rolling. At the bottom of the hill was a sharp bend. The other engines were in the yard, and could hear number 3's final whistle. Then, all of a sudden, the puffing stopped, and the sound of wheels on rails turned to deafening silence. That was the last time they ever heard number 3.
The search crew was sent to investigate, but when they arrived, there was no sign of the train. The rails were perfectly intact, the foliage by the bend completely untouched. They never found number 3. Years later,
Both hands go. The engine was called Smudger, but that was never his real name. He was said to be a careless engine who shoved trucks offline. The manager was very disturbed by his actions, so he turned him into a generator. Years went by, but one day it happened. Was no more. His spirit still haunts the old rooms of the line, until the line was refurbished years later.
Coal cars up to the mountain. It was very hard work. Then, as they reached the hill, his driver stopped the train. They knew was something the matter, so his driver finally got out the cab. They didn't know his brakes wasn't secured. Then, it happened. His driver friend was shocked as Tom rolled down the hill backwards, and he said, "Help!" Tom was scared. He knew what happened next. As Tom rolled down the hill, he came off the rails, and he plunged into the ravine. His driver friend was survived, but it wasn't survive enough for Tom. He got explosion. Tom now being scrapped. He will never seen again.
Way had the passenger on one of his trains. A long time ago, the little engine was taking the train through a winding, narrow mountain route. He was running along nicely and being very careful. As he was passing by the cliffside, suddenly, without warning, he derailed and plunged off the ridge. The workmen inspected the rails but could find nothing wrong. The coaches stayed on the rails, but the engine was lost.
Not long after she left, the weather changed for the worse. It was one of the worst storms in U.S. history, with flash floods being reported everywhere along the line. The Miller River Bridge was the last bridge between the mountain line and the safety of the yard. However, the flash flood had loosened large rocks and trees from the banks, causing them to plummet into the raging rapids below. Since the bridge was made out of wood at the time, the force of the water and debris slowly took out the supports. The speed through the Miller River Canyon was 15 miles per hour at the running lake, so the driver had the throttle open, doing 30 miles per hour down the grade. When they were starting to cross the bridge, its supports finally gave, and it collapsed, taking the train along with its crew into the river below. The following day, a rescue was carried out, and they found total devastation. The location of the wreck hasn't been located, and perhaps never will. Since the night of October 31st, 1957, over and over again, once every year, the spirit of 311, otherwise known as the Demon 311, is either heard coming from the mountain or can be seen sitting there, shining her ghostly red head, thundering by where the accident occurred, trying to cross the bridge, but she never reaches.
Jim, number 6, was an engineer who worked on the old railway with Duke, Falcon and Stewart. But as the years went by, the Lions' traffic fell, but it didn't help much. One day, Jim was travelling up the line with some ammunition. It was going to be stored in the old mines. All was going well until they reached a hill. Jim, who was puffing harder, blew sparks out of his funnel. The sparks set a truck alight. Suddenly, the manager came up to inspect the wreckage. At last, he spoke to Jim sternly. "I'm sorry, Jim," he said. "The explosives have damaged parts of your back end immensely, and we don't have the money or parts to fix you." So, another engine shunted Jim into an old siding out of the way. He never moved again, and as the years went by, he slowly rusted away. In the early days of the Mid-Sodor Railway, Duke was the only engine to operate the main line, while the others were restricted to the mines and quarries. Duke handled both freight and passenger services on the main. He enjoyed the peace and quiet and never complained, but the manager felt Duke needed help. He was right. The engine was called Albert. On his first day, the manager had assigned him to take some empty trucks to the quarry.